Have you ever noticed how much of your life is spent everywhere but here? Think about it. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? Most people grab their phone, scroll through notifications, check Instagram, WhatsApp, or emails. Before the day even begins, your mind is racing into the future. What do I have to do today? What if I forget something? What if that person doesn't reply? Or it sinks into the past. Why did I say that yesterday? Why didn't I handle that situation better? And in those very first moments of the day, you are already absent from the only place life actually exists, the present moment. This is the core message of Eckhart Tolle's book The Power of Now. We live in time, but we don't live in life. We are constantly thinking about what already happened or what might happen, but we rarely experience what is happening right now. And here's the paradox. The now is the only thing that ever truly exists. Think about it. Everything you've ever experienced happened in the present moment. When you remember the past, you're remembering it now. When you imagine the future, you're imagining it now. Life is always now. Yet, because of the way our minds are wired, we treat the present as nothing more than a stepping stone, a bridge to somewhere else. Eckhart Tolle says that this constant obsession with past and future is what creates suffering. The past fills us with regret, shame, or nostalgia. The future fills us with anxiety, worry, or hope. And when we identify ourselves with those thoughts, when we let them define us, we become prisoners of time. Instead of living our lives, we're stuck inside our heads. Instead of experiencing reality, we're replaying memories and rehearsing imaginary scenarios. It's like sitting inside a movie theater of your mind, watching old films on repeat, while life itself is happening outside the theater doors. Now, let's make this real and relatable. Imagine a student preparing for exams. Instead of focusing on today's study material, their mind is racing, what if I fail? What if my parents get disappointed? What if I don't get into college? The anxiety of the future cripples their focus in the now, and ironically, it reduces their chances of doing well. Or think of someone going through a breakup. Instead of being present with themselves, healing, and moving forward, they replay every argument, every conversation, every mistake. Their mind is trapped in the past, and the pain lingers long after the event itself is gone. Do you see the pattern? The event itself isn't the problem. The problem is our inability to let go of time. And here's the most important realization. You are not your thoughts. Most people live as if their mind is their master, not their servant. They identify so strongly with the voice in their head that they think, this is me. But stop for a second. If you can observe your thoughts, then by definition, you are not those thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. Just like you are not the clouds in the sky, you are the sky itself, vast, open, and untouched. Your thoughts are like clouds. They come and go. Sometimes they are dark and stormy, sometimes light and fluffy, but the sky remains unchanged. This shift in perspective is the beginning of freedom. Here's a simple experiment you can do right now while watching this video. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Now, try to watch your mind. Ask yourself, what will my next thought be? And then wait. Wait in silence. Something amazing happens. For a moment, there is no thought. There is just stillness. That stillness, that silence between thoughts, that is the present moment. That is who you really are. If you practice this, even for a few seconds, you'll notice a sense of peace, a sense of aliveness that doesn't come from past or future, but from being present. You see, the reason the power of now resonates with millions of people is because it's not just philosophy. It's not abstract theory. It's an invitation to experience life differently. The book doesn't ask you to believe something. It asks you to notice something, the reality of now. And once you taste it, you realize how much of your suffering is self-created. Not because life is always easy, but because we resist what is happening in the present moment by clinging to stories of the past or fears of the future. Think about your own life. How much time do you spend replaying old mistakes, regrets, or traumas? And how much energy do you waste worrying about things that might never happen? If you're honest, you'll see that most of your suffering is not about what's happening right now, but about what your mind is telling you. Tolle's teaching is simple. The more you stay present, the more you dissolve unnecessary suffering. You begin to live instead of think about living. And here's the beauty. Presence is not something you have to achieve. It's not a goal in the future. You don't have to meditate for 10 years or climb a mountain in the Himalayas to find it. Presence is available right now. The moment you take a conscious breath, the moment you become aware of your surroundings, the moment you feel the life energy in your body, you are already in the now. It's not about adding something new. It's about dropping what's unnecessary. Let's ground this with a powerful metaphor. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. Inside it are stones labeled regret, guilt, what if, someday. You walk through life bent over, exhausted, because of this unnecessary weight. Then one day, you realize, you can put the backpack down. That's what living in the now feels like. The weight of time dissolves, and you finally experience the lightness of being. So, as we begin this journey into the power of now, I want you to understand this. The present moment is not just a tiny slice of time between past and future. It is the eternal ground of your existence. Everything else, your memories, your plans, your worries, are just mental constructs. The only real life is here now. And if you can fully grasp this, even for a moment, you've already begun to awaken. Now that we've established the importance of presence, let's go deeper into why we actually miss the now in the first place. Because if it's so obvious that life only happens in the present moment, then why are we all trapped in the cycle of past and future? The answer lies in something Eckhart Tolle calls psychological time. There's nothing wrong with clock time. We need it to plan, to schedule meetings, to catch flights. But most of us don't use time. Time uses us. We confuse the functional purpose of time with our identity, our self-worth, and our happiness. And that's when time becomes toxic. Think about it. When you worry about tomorrow's meeting, you're not simply noting that you have a meeting. You're creating an entire story around it. What if I mess up? What if people think I'm incompetent? What if this ruins my career? That's not clock time, that's psychological time. It's you living in an imaginary future, suffering for something that hasn't even happened. Or consider the way we hold grudges. The fight you had last month is over. The words were said, the event is gone. But in your mind, you replay it again and again, each time fueling your anger and pain. That's not the past. That's your mind recycling the past into the present, stealing your peace. This constant mental time travel is exhausting, and yet we're addicted to it. Why? Because our egos feed on it. The ego thrives on problems, on unfinished business, on unresolved stories. If everything were perfect right now, if you were completely content in this very moment, the ego would have no purpose. So it convinces you that peace lies somewhere else, in the next promotion, the next relationship, the next achievement. It whispers, not now but later. Not here but there. And you believe it, so you chase after an illusion. Let's make this real. Imagine you're scrolling through Instagram, and you see someone on vacation in Bali, someone else buying a new car, another person announcing an engagement. Instantly, your mind says, I'm behind. I'm not good enough. I need to catch up. You forget that this is just a snapshot of someone's life, and you create an entire story about your own lack. That's ego using psychological time. It says, one day, when I have what they have, then I'll be happy. But here's the paradox. When that one day arrives, the mind creates a new story. It's never enough. You're always running, never arriving. Tolle calls this the greatest illusion, that salvation, happiness, or fulfillment exists in the future. He explains that the present moment is treated like an obstacle to get through on the way to something better. But what if the present moment is not an obstacle? What if it's the only destination there is? If you don't realize this, you'll live your whole life chasing someday and never actually live. You'll be like a runner on a treadmill, sweating, moving, working hard, but never arriving anywhere. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If the past and future are just mental constructs, then what is real? The now. The now is the only place where life actually unfolds. When you were a child playing in the park, it was happening in the now. When you graduated school, it was the now. When you're watching this video right now, it is now. There has never been a time that was not now. Past is just a collection of nows remembered. Future is just a collection of nows imagined. Realizing this is not just philosophy, it's liberation. Let me share a short story. A man once told Tolle that he was always anxious because he had so many problems in his life. Tolle asked him, "Do you have any problems right now, in this moment?" The man thought for a second and said, "Well, no, not right now. But I might lose my job tomorrow." Tolle replied, "Then tomorrow is your problem, not now. Right now, you are okay." That's the secret. Almost always, if you zoom into the present moment, you'll find that you are okay. Your breath is moving. Your body is alive. The floor is under your feet. The sky is still above you. It's only when you wander into past and future that problems seem overwhelming. Let's test this with you. Pause this video for a second and look around. Notice 5 things in your room. Feel the texture of your chair. Take a slow, deep breath. At this moment, is there really a problem? Or is your mind just inventing one? Most likely, you'll realize that right now, life is fine. The bills are due next week, but right now, you're breathing. The breakup hurt last month, but right now, you're safe. The future presentation is tomorrow, but right now, you're here, watching. This shift from mental time to actual presence is transformative. And here's the part that makes this video not just a lesson but an experience. Try to imagine your life if you lived with this awareness daily. When stress shows up, instead of spiraling into, "What if this goes wrong?" you pause and say, "Is there a problem right now?" When guilt shows up, instead of replaying mistakes, you remind yourself, "That moment is gone. This moment is alive." Slowly, your mind stops dragging you through unnecessary suffering, and you begin to live with clarity and peace. But of course, it's not easy. Our culture rewards distraction. Social media thrives on keeping you addicted to the next hit of dopamine. Schools rarely teach mindfulness. Work culture glorifies stress and hustle. Everywhere, the message is, do more, chase more, achieve more. Which is why a teaching like The Power of Now feels revolutionary. It's not about doing more. It's about stopping. It's about noticing the stillness that's always here, underneath the noise. So as we continue, keep this in mind. The now is not just a concept to understand, it's something to practice. You can't simply think your way into presence. You must experience it. And the beautiful part is, you can do that right now, in this moment. Take another deep breath. Notice the sensation of your lungs filling. Feel the air on your skin. Hear the subtle sounds around you. This is life. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Just now. Now that we've uncovered how our obsession with time traps us in suffering, let's turn to one of the most powerful ideas in The Power of Now, the ego. Because it's not just time that keeps us out of the present, it's the ego that insists on living anywhere but here. What exactly is the ego? Many people think of it as arrogance or pride, but in Tolle's teachings, ego is much broader. Ego is the false sense of self created by our thoughts, our stories, our roles, and our labels. It's the voice in your head that says, "I am my job. I am my success. I am my failures. I am what people think of me." Ego attaches itself to identities: student, businessman, mother, influencer, failure, winner. And because those identities are fragile and constantly changing, the ego feels under attack all the time. That's why we feel anxious, defensive, insecure, or superior, because the ego is always fighting to survive. Let's make this real with a scenario. Imagine you post a photo on Instagram, and it gets 1,000 likes. Instantly, the ego feels inflated. "I am loved. I am worthy." But the next week, you post something and it gets only 50 likes. Suddenly the ego collapses. "Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe people don't care about me anymore." Do you see what's happening? Nothing in reality has changed. You are still you. But the ego, which feeds on external validation, rises and falls like a stock market. Living from ego means living in constant instability. Here's another example. Suppose you're at work and someone criticizes your idea in a meeting. The ego reacts instantly. "How dare they? Don't they know who I am?" Anger flares up, not because the criticism is dangerous, but because the ego felt attacked. This is why Tolle says the ego thrives on conflict. The more it fights, the more it strengthens its illusion of identity. But beneath the noise of the ego, your true self, awareness, presence, remains untouched. Now, why does the ego resist the present moment? Because in the present, the ego cannot survive. The ego lives in past and future. It says, I am this person because of my story. Or, I will be fulfilled when I achieve this. The present moment exposes the ego as an illusion. In the now, you are simply awareness. You are not your story, not your labels, not your titles. You just are. And for the ego, that's terrifying. That's why the ego constantly distracts you from being present. It keeps whispering, don't relax now. You'll miss out. Keep striving. Keep chasing. But here's the paradox. Every desire the ego has, for love, success, recognition, is actually a distorted craving for the peace of presence. When the ego says, I'll be happy when I get that promotion, what it really means is, I'll be happy when I can stop wanting and just rest. But you don't have to wait for some future achievement to rest. You can rest now. You can step out of the ego's game entirely. To understand this deeply, let's use a metaphor. Imagine the ocean. Your thoughts and your ego are like waves, constantly rising and falling, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy. But beneath the waves is the deep, still ocean. That stillness is your true nature, your presence. When you identify with the waves, you get tossed around, you drown in anxiety. But when you identify with the ocean, you realize the waves are just surface play. They come and go, but the depth remains unshaken. This is why Tolle emphasizes observing the ego. The moment you become aware of the ego in action, you are no longer completely identified with it. You step back and notice, this is my ego feeling offended. This is my ego chasing validation. That awareness itself weakens the ego. It's like shining light on a shadow. The shadow disappears. The ego can only control you when it operates unconsciously. Let's practice this together. Think of the last time you felt jealous. Maybe a friend succeeded, or someone else got the recognition you wanted. Notice how the mind created a story. They're ahead of me. I'm falling behind. That's ego. Now, instead of believing the story, imagine simply observing it. Interesting, my ego feels threatened. The moment you do that, something shifts. You are no longer the jealousy. You are the observer of jealousy. And in that gap, presence enters. This doesn't mean you'll never have thoughts or emotions again. It means you stop being enslaved by them. Tolle explains it like this. You don't need to fight the ego, because fighting strengthens it. You simply need to notice it. Awareness itself is the antidote. It's like waking up from a dream. The dream loses power the moment you realize you're dreaming. Now, you might be wondering, if the ego is so destructive, why do we all have it? The truth is, the ego isn't bad. It's just unconscious. It's a stage in human development. Children naturally build an ego to create a sense of self. Society reinforces it. Without ego, we couldn't function in the world. We need to say, I am this person, this is my role, this is my job. The problem isn't having an ego. The problem is mistaking the ego for your true identity. The awakening comes when you recognize, I have an ego, but I am not my ego. So here's the practice for you. The next time you feel triggered, anger, jealousy, pride, defensiveness, pause and ask, who is feeling this? My true self or my ego? Most of the time, you'll realize it's the ego. And that realization is a crack in the illusion. Presence seeps through that crack. The more you practice, the wider the crack grows, until the ego no longer runs your life. This shift has profound effects. Relationships transform when you no longer take everything personally. Work stress reduces when you stop defining yourself by success or failure. Social media becomes less addictive when you stop chasing validation. Life becomes lighter, freer, more peaceful. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. When the ego quiets down, you begin to notice the richness of the present moment. Simple things, a sip of tea, a bird singing, the warmth of sunlight, feel alive, vibrant. You realize that the now has always been abundant, but you were too distracted to notice. So in this third stage of our journey, remember, the ego is not you. It's a mask you wear. The real you is the awareness behind the mask. And every time you return to the now, you take off the mask and reconnect with your true self. We've explored the trap of time and the prison of the ego, but knowing about these concepts isn't enough. The real transformation happens when you learn how to practice presence. Because theory won't change your life, practice will. Tolle emphasizes that the power of now is not something you just understand intellectually, it's something you live. And the good news is, presence can be practiced anywhere, anytime, in the smallest of moments. Let's begin with the simplest tool, conscious breathing. You don't need a meditation cushion or a quiet forest. You just need your breath. Right now, take one slow, deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a second. Then exhale slowly through your mouth. Do it again. As you do this, shift your attention fully to the sensation of air moving in and out of your body. That's it. This simple act of observing your breath anchors you in the now. Why? Because breathing can only happen in the present moment. You can't breathe yesterday, and you can't breathe tomorrow. Breath is life, and life is always now. Another powerful practice is body awareness. Tolle often talks about feeling the inner body. What does that mean? It means paying attention to the subtle energy inside you, the tingling in your hands, the warmth in your chest, the pulse in your feet. Right now, try this. Close your eyes for a moment and focus only on your right hand. Don't move it, just feel it from the inside. You may notice a faint vibration, a sense of aliveness. That's your inner body. When you bring attention there, thoughts fade and presence arises. Then there's mindful observation of the world around you. Next time you drink tea or coffee, don't just gulp it down while scrolling on your phone. Stop. Look at the cup. Smell the aroma. Feel the warmth. Take a sip slowly and notice the taste on your tongue. For those few seconds, you are not lost in thought. You are in direct contact with life. The ordinary becomes extraordinary when experienced fully. Walking, eating, washing dishes, all of these can become doorways into presence. But perhaps the most transformative practice is watching the thinker. We've said before that you are not your thoughts. Here's how you prove it to yourself. Throughout the day, pause and notice your mind. Imagine you are sitting on a riverbank, watching your thoughts flow by like boats. You don't need to chase them or stop them. Just watch. The very act of watching creates a space between you and your thoughts. In that space, peace arises. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, this sounds nice, but what about real problems? What if I'm broke, heartbroken, or sick? Can presence solve that? And the answer is yes, but not in the way you think. Presence doesn't magically erase your life situation. If you have bills to pay, presence won't pay them for you. If you're sick, presence won't snap its fingers and heal you instantly. But what it does is dissolve unnecessary suffering. It allows you to handle problems with clarity instead of panic. Let me give you an example. Imagine you lost your job. The mind immediately spins into chaos. I'm doomed. I'll never recover. What if I can't pay rent? What if I end up homeless? Notice, none of this is happening right now. Right now, you're sitting in a chair, breathing. The only reality is, I don't have a job. That's it. The rest is mental drama. From the state of presence, you can calmly ask, what is the next step I can take now? Maybe update your resume. Maybe send an email. Maybe take a break to clear your head. Instead of drowning in fear of the future, you deal with reality, moment by moment. That's the power of now. The same applies in relationships. Think of arguments with loved ones. Most fights are not about the present moment. They're about the past. You always do this. Remember last year when you said that? Or they're about the future. You'll never change. This relationship will fail. But if both people could drop their stories and simply be present, even for a few seconds, most arguments would dissolve. In the now, you just have two human beings breathing, alive, together. Love flows in presence, not in memory or expectation. This is also why presence is a natural cure for anxiety and depression. Anxiety lives in the future, in endless what-ifs. Depression often lives in the past, in regrets and losses. But in the present, most of the time, you are okay. Even if pain exists, you can handle pain in the now. What you can't handle is the idea of pain stretched out across an imagined future. That's why presence is so powerful. It shrinks life down to a manageable size, one moment at a time. Of course, practicing presence is not about becoming a monk in a cave. You don't need to renounce life. You don't need to stop working, stop dreaming, or stop using your phone. Presence doesn't mean you can't plan for tomorrow. It just means you don't lose yourself in tomorrow. You use clock time, but you don't get trapped in psychological time. You can set goals, but you stay rooted in the now while working toward them. Here's a practical exercise you can start today. Set now reminders. Every time your phone vibrates or every time you see a red light while driving, instead of getting annoyed, use it as a cue. Take one conscious breath. Return to the now. Over time, these micro moments of presence accumulate, and they begin to change your entire mental landscape. Another practice is the one conscious action rule. Choose one activity per day to do with full awareness. Maybe it's brushing your teeth. For those 2 minutes, feel the brush, notice the taste of toothpaste, hear the sound of bristles. That's your daily presence practice. It may sound simple, but this is how awareness grows. Now let me share a personal story to make this vivid. A friend of mine used to struggle with extreme social anxiety. Every time he walked into a room, his mind would go, "What if people think I'm weird? What if I say something stupid? What if I embarrass myself?" He read The Power of Now and decided to try a simple practice, focusing on his breathing whenever he felt nervous. At first, it didn't seem to work. But over weeks, something shifted. He realized that when he stayed with his breath, the fear in his head lost its grip. Conversations flowed more naturally. He was no longer paralyzed by future scenarios. All he had to do was come back to now, one breath at a time. That's the beauty of these practices. They don't require years of study. They don't require special skills. They just require you to notice what is already here. Presence is free, immediate, and always available. You don't have to add anything. You just have to drop what distracts you. So remember, the power of now is not a future goal. It's not something you achieve someday. It's something you live moment by moment. Through conscious breathing, body awareness, mindful observation, and watching the thinker, you step out of the prison of time and ego, and into the freedom of presence. So here we are, we've explored the traps of time, the illusions of ego, and the practices that bring us back to presence. Now comes the most important question. What does it actually mean to live in the power of now every single day? Because it's one thing to understand it while watching a video, but the real transformation happens when you carry it into your ordinary, messy, busy life. First, let's get something clear. Living in the now does not mean escaping reality. It doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities, quitting your job, or pretending problems don't exist. What it means is meeting life as it actually is, not as your mind imagines it. When you face a challenge, you stop asking, "What if?" and start asking, "What now?" That simple shift is everything. Instead of drowning in mental noise, you focus on the next step in front of you. Life stops being overwhelming and starts being manageable, because you only ever deal with one moment at a time. Imagine life as a long road trip. The mind is always obsessing over the destination. When will we get there? What if we run out of gas? What if the car breaks down? And because of this, you miss the scenery along the way. You miss the laughter, the music, the small stops that make the journey beautiful. Living in the now is like rolling down the window, feeling the breeze, and enjoying the ride. Yes, you'll still arrive somewhere eventually. But the point was never just the destination. The point was to live the journey fully. Now, let's talk about something Eckhart Tolle emphasizes again and again: surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean being passive. It means saying yes to the present moment, exactly as it is. Most of our suffering comes not from the situation itself, but from our resistance to it. Think about the last time you were stuck in traffic. The situation was simple. Cars were not moving. But your mind screamed, "This is terrible. I hate this. Why is this happening to me?" That resistance created suffering. Now imagine simply accepting it. Right now, this is what is. I can't change it, but I can choose how to be with it. Suddenly, the frustration dissolves. The situation remains the same, but your experience transforms. That's the magic of surrender. This applies to big life situations too. Losing a job, ending a relationship, facing illness. In each case, the pain is real. But suffering comes from resisting reality. This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. When you surrender, you acknowledge, this is what is, right now. I may not like it, but I accept that it is happening. From that space of acceptance, real power emerges. You can take clear action without the fog of resistance. You stop being a victim of life and become a conscious participant. Here's a story to make this real. There's a famous example of a man who was imprisoned for decades under harsh conditions. Instead of letting bitterness consume him, he practiced presence. He surrendered to each day as it came. When asked how he survived, he said, "I didn't think about the years ahead. I lived one moment at a time." And when he was finally released, he was not broken but deeply peaceful. That's the strength of living in the now. So how do you bring this into your life right now, after this video ends? Start small. The next time you wash your hands, do it with full attention. The next time you feel anxiety rising, pause and take 3 conscious breaths. The next time you catch yourself replaying the past or worrying about the future, ask, what is my reality in this moment? Over time, these small practices build a new way of being. Presence becomes your natural state. And here's the beautiful ripple effect. When you live in the now, you influence others. People feel it. They feel calmer around you, more seen, more heard. Imagine being in a conversation where the other person isn't half distracted by their phone or by their own thoughts, but fully with you. That's a gift you can give by practicing presence. You don't just transform your inner world. You transform your relationships, your family, your community. Now let's make this viral. I want to challenge you. Starting today, commit to a 7-day presence challenge. For the next 7 days, once a day, pause for 1 minute. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just breathe and notice the now. Then, in the comments, share what you experienced. Did you feel calmer? Did you notice something you'd been missing? Let's create a wave of presence together. Imagine thousands of people around the world practicing stillness at the same time. That's how we change not just ourselves, but the collective. And if you want to go deeper, remember this. Presence is not about adding something new to your life. It's about subtracting what's unnecessary. You don't need to wait for the perfect conditions. You don't need to wait until you're older, richer, wiser, or more successful. The door to the now is always open. No matter who you are, no matter what your circumstances. All you have to do is step through it. Let me end with one of Tolle's most powerful lines. Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. If you do that, anxiety loses its grip. Regret fades. Fear weakens. And what emerges is something you've been searching for all along. Peace, joy, aliveness. Not someday but here. Not there, but here. Not later, but now. So as you close this video, don't just move on to the next distraction. Pause. Take 1 deep breath. Feel your body. Look around. This, right here, right now, is life. And it's waiting for you to live it.